Two-room Flexi flats. Under the two-room Flexi scheme, elderly citizens have the flexibility of choosing the length of lease on their two-room flat, based on their age, needs, and preferences. If you are aged 55 and above, you can take up a lease of between 15 and 45 years in 5-year increments, as long as it covers you and your spouse up to the age of at least 95 years. First and second-timer families, as well as first-timer singles, can buy new two-room flats on a 99-year lease. The eligibility conditions to buy a two-room Flexi flat are detailed below. Alternatively, you can also use our e-service to check your eligibility to buy an HDB flat. Before you submit your application, we advise that you learn more about the financial planning involved in a flat purchase and the conditions that apply after you buy a two-room Flexi flat. Eligible applicant/family nucleus. You need to qualify for a new flat under one of our eligibility schemes. Public scheme, fiancé/fiancée scheme, orphan scheme, single Singapore citizen scheme, non-citizen spouse scheme, joint single scheme, citizenship. At least one Singapore citizen applicant. At least one other Singapore citizen or Singapore permanent resident when applying under these schemes. Public scheme, fiancé/fiancée scheme, orphan scheme. Spouse is not a Singapore citizen or Singapore permanent resident when applying under the non-citizen spouse scheme. All applicants, maximum of 4, must be Singapore citizens when applying under the joint single scheme. Age. At least 21 years old if applying under the public scheme/fiancé/fiancée scheme/orphan scheme. At least 35 years old if applying under the single Singapore citizen scheme/non-citizen spouse scheme/joint single scheme. You, your spouse, and all buyers must be at least 55 years old at the time of flat application. The allowable lease period will be based on the age of the youngest applicant/spouse at the time of flat application. The chosen lease must be able to last you, your spouse, and all buyers until at least age 95. The selection of lease period will be made during the flat selection. Income ceiling. 99 years lease. Your average gross monthly household income cannot exceed $7,000. Short-term lease. Your average gross monthly household income cannot exceed $14,000. Property ownership. 99 years lease. All applicants and occupiers listed in the flat application do not own other properties overseas or locally, and have not disposed of any within the last 30 months. All applicants and occupiers listed in the flat application cannot invest in private residential property from the date of flat application till after the 5-year minimum occupation period, MOP. You have not purchased a new HDB/DBSS flat or EC, or received a CPF housing grant before, or have only purchased one of those properties/received one CPF housing grant thus far. Short-term lease. If you or any person listed in your flat application owns a private property either locally or overseas, you must dispose of all private properties within 6 months from the date of taking possession of the two-room Flexi flat. Eligibility schemes. Public scheme, fiancé/fiancée scheme, orphan scheme, single Singapore citizen scheme, non-citizen spouse scheme, joint single scheme. If you are an unmarried parent and would like to apply for a flat from HDB, please write to us via our e-feedback form. We will contact you soon after to understand more about your circumstances. Public scheme. You can form a family nucleus with any of the following: spouse and children, if any. Parents and siblings, if any. Children under your legal custody, care and control, if widowed/divorced. Hashtag if the care and control of your children under the age of 21 is shared with your ex-spouse, you must obtain his/her written agreement before you can list your children in a flat application. If you face difficulties in obtaining the agreement or have a question for us, please contact us via our e-feedback form. If you are an unmarried parent and would like to apply for a flat from HDB, please write to us via our e-feedback form. We will contact you soon after to understand more about your circumstances. No change of people listed in the application. Applications under this scheme are only valid if there are no changes to the people listed in the application. This means that in the case of a breakup, you are not allowed to subsequently include the names of a new fiancé/fiancée or your parents in the application, even if your ex-fiancé/fiancée agrees. Fiancé/fiancée scheme. You form a family nucleus with your spouse-to-be. Please note the following for the fiancé/fiancée scheme. Solemnization of marriage. Under this scheme, you need to solemnize your marriage within 3 months of collecting your keys to your flat. If your marriage is registered overseas, please submit a photocopy of your marriage certificate to us. If you solemnized your marriage before collecting your keys, submit a photocopy of your marriage certificate to the HDB sales office during your keys collection appointment. If you solemnized your marriage after collecting your keys, submit a photocopy of your marriage certificate to your managing HDB branch. Written parental consent needed if spouse-to-be is 18 years old and above but below 21. That person can only be listed as an essential occupier in the flat application. Written consent from that person's parents/guardians must be submitted during the flat selection appointment. Special marriage license needed if spouse-to-be is below 18 years old. Following your flat application, you must obtain a special marriage license from the Ministry of Social and Family Development and submit it to us during the flat selection appointment. No change of people listed in the application. Applications under this scheme are only valid if there are no changes to the people listed in the application. This means that in the case of a breakup, you are not allowed to subsequently include the names of a new fiancé/fiancée or your parents in the application, even if your ex-fiancé/fiancée agrees. Orphan scheme. You and your siblings, those applying, are orphans and single, i.e. unmarried, divorced, or widowed. All of the siblings that are single must be listed in the same application. At least one of the deceased parents was a Singapore citizen or Singapore permanent resident. Please note that under the orphan scheme, siblings cannot buy/rent flats separately. Single Singapore citizen scheme. You are a first-timer and single, unmarried, divorced, or widowed, and eligible for a new 2-room flat in non-mature estates. If you are an unmarried parent and would like to apply for a flat from HDB, please write to us via our e-feedback form. We will contact you soon after to understand more about your circumstances. Non-citizen spouse scheme. You are a first-timer applicant and your spouse is a non-resident, i.e. neither a Singapore citizen nor a Singapore permanent resident. Your non-resident spouse must be holding a valid long-term visit pass or work pass of any validity period at the time of your flat application. Eligible to apply for a new 2-room Flexi flat in non-mature estates. Applications under this scheme are valid only if there is no change to the people listed in your flat application. This means that you cannot later replace your spouse with your parents or any other persons. Note, if you have a child from the marriage and the child is a Singapore citizen or Singapore permanent resident, you can apply for a flat under the public scheme. Joint single scheme. You and the co-applicants, up to 3 others, are all first-timers and single, unmarried, divorced, or widowed. All of you must be Singapore citizens. Be at least 35 years old. Apply jointly as co-applicants. Under this scheme, you will only be eligible for a new 2-room flat in non-mature estates. No change of people listed in the application. Applications under this scheme are only valid if there are no changes to the people listed. This means that you cannot later replace the names of the co-applicants. What is the income ceiling? The income ceiling depends on the type of flat you intend to get. If your average gross monthly household income exceeds the income ceiling, you will not be eligible for that flat type. Flat type: 2-room Flexi flat on 99-year lease. Income ceiling: average gross monthly household income $7,000. Flat type: 2-room Flexi flat on short lease, 15-year to 45-year lease. Income ceiling: average gross monthly household income $14,000. What income documents must I submit? For your flat application, you and any other applicants and essential occupiers will need to prepare specific documents depending on your nature of employment. Also, please note that some forms of income/allowance are not included when assessing your household income. For your flat application, you and the other applicants and essential occupiers will need to get ready the following documents for our verification. 3 months payslips preceding the month of application, if employed full-time, not on commission basis. 6 months of income documents preceding the month of application, for other types of employment. Proof of unemployment, if not working. Aside from the above documents, we may also request other documents for verification if needed. Employed person. 3 months payslips preceding the month of application. Or letter from employer certifying salaries for 3 months preceding the month of application. The letter must contain the company stamp/letterhead, certifying officer's name, signature, and designation. Note, if your income includes allowances, we will require 6 months payslips preceding the month of application. Assessment is based on the average gross monthly income, which excludes bonuses and income earned from ad hoc overtime work. Includes allowances, fixed/variable, received on a regular basis, e.g. allowances for food, transport, laundry, uniform, etc. If you are employed full-time but on no pay leave for less than 6 months, we will consider you as employed and use your last drawn pay for assessment. If you are on no pay leave for 6 months or more, your income will not be considered in the assessment. Notice of assessment (NOA) from the Inland Revenue Authority of Singapore (IRAS) will not be accepted. Self-employed person. Latest NOA from IRAS or statement of annual accounts certified by an audit firm. And valid accounting and corporate regulatory authority (ACRA), computer information, business profile, or valid license of trade. And undertaking affirming the average gross monthly income for 6 months preceding the month of application. Assessment is based on the average gross monthly income. The undertaking for applicants/occupiers to affirm their average gross monthly income will be included in the invitation package for flat selection. Applicants/occupiers will have to complete the undertaking and submit it during the flat selection appointment. If the applicant/occupier is not in Singapore, he/she may complete the undertaking and arrange for a proxy to submit it during the flat selection appointment. Part-time worker. 6 months payslips preceding the month of application. Or letter from employer certifying salaries for 6 months preceding the month of application. The letter must contain the company stamp/letterhead, certifying officer's name, signature, and designation. Assessment is based on the average gross monthly income. Commission-based person. 6 months commission statements/payslips preceding the month of application. Or letter from employer certifying salaries for 6 months preceding the month of application. The letter must contain the company stamp/letterhead, certifying officer's name, signature, and designation. Assessment is based on the average gross monthly income. Odd job worker. Latest NOA from IRAS. Or letter from employer certifying salaries for 6 months preceding the month of application. The letter must contain the company stamp/letterhead, certifying officer's name, signature, and designation. Assessment is based on the average gross monthly income. Unemployed person, between 18 to 62 years old. Undertaking affirming the unemployment status. Or valid student pass or letter from school/college/institute of learning to confirm student status, if currently a full-time student. If unemployed for less than 3 months, the following documents are required. Income proof for the preceding months from the previous employer stating gross monthly income and last day of service. Latest 15 months CPF contribution history. The undertaking for applicants/occupiers to affirm their average gross monthly income will be included in the invitation package for flat selection. Applicants/occupiers will have to complete the undertaking and submit it during the flat selection appointment. If the applicant/occupier is not in Singapore, he/she may complete the undertaking and arrange for a proxy to submit it during the flat selection appointment. Income/allowance that will be considered for income assessment. Allowances, fixed/variable, received on a regular basis, e.g. allowances for food, transport, laundry, uniform, etc. Sustenance allowance. Stipend received on a regular basis for work conducted for the educational institute during full-time studies. Income/allowance that will not be considered for income assessment. Alimony allowance. Bonuses. Director's fee. Income from ad hoc overtime work. Interest from deposit accounts. National service allowance. Rental income. Scholarship overseas allowance. Overseas cost of living allowance. Pension. Are there any time periods during which I cannot apply for a flat? Yes. There are instances where you may need to wait out a set time period before you can apply or be listed in the application for a new flat. This usually happens when someone has not met the minimum occupation period, MOP, of a current flat/EC unit, has previously cancelled a flat application, or chose not to select a flat twice. MOP requirements: current owner/essential occupier of a flat or an EC unit. Before applying for the new flat, you need to check if you or any other flat applicant S/essential occupiers to be listed in the flat application own any of these. HDB flat bought from HDB or on the open market. EC unit/DBSS flat bought from the developer. If so, that person must have already met that flat/EC's 5-year MOP before he can apply for a new flat. An essential occupier must also have met the flat/EC's 5-year MOP before he can be listed in a new flat application. In the case of ECs, you must also wait out a 30-month period from the EC's effective date of disposal, which we will verify using your notice of transfer, or any other such documentation we may require. Type of property. HDB flat bought from HDB, or on the open market. DBSS flat bought from the developer. Time period before you can apply for a new HDB flat. MOP of 5 years. Type of property. EC unit bought from the developer. Time period before you can apply for a new HDB flat. MOP of 5 years plus 30 months from date of EC disposal. Cancel the flat application after booking a flat. If you book a flat and subsequently cancel your booking, you must wait out a 1-year period from the date of the cancellation before you can apply or be listed as an essential occupier of a new HDB flat. DBSS flat bought from a developer. EC bought from a developer. Resale flat bought using a CPF housing grant. Resale flat announced for SERS. 2 non-selections of a flat. If you are a second-timer applicant or first-timer single that does not book a flat after being invited to do so for 2 times in a row, you need to wait 1 year from the date of the second non-selection before you can participate in our sales launches. Second-timer applicant/first-timer single is successfully balloted and invited to select a flat, but does not do so. Allowed to apply for a new flat? Yes. Second-timer applicant/first-timer single gets successfully balloted a second time, and once again does not select a flat. Allowed to apply for a new flat? Not for 1 year. Am I a first or second-timer applicant? A first-timer applicant is a person or household that has never received any form of housing subsidy or similar benefit. A second-timer applicant is a person or household that has received some form of housing subsidy or similar benefit. If you are a second-timer and your spouse/spouse-to-be is a first-timer, you as a couple will enjoy first-timer privileges and priority. First-timer applicant. First-timers enjoy privileges and priority in flat allocation. Yours will be treated as a first-timer application if you and any of the other listed owners and essential occupiers meet the following criteria. Not the owner of a flat bought from HDB, or an EC/DBSS flat bought from a developer. Not sold a flat bought from HDB, or an EC/DBSS flat bought from a developer. Not received any CPF housing grant for the purchase of an HDB resale flat. Not taken any form of housing subsidy, e.g. benefited under the Selective and Block Redevelopment Scheme, SERS, or HUDC estate privatization. If you are a second-timer and your spouse/spouse-to-be is a first-timer, you and your spouse/spouse-to-be will enjoy first-timer privileges and priority as a couple. Additional amount payable included in flat price. Eligibility scheme. Single Singapore citizen/non-citizen spouse. 99-year lease. $15,000. Short lease. Average gross monthly household income $7,000 and below. Adjusted from $15,000, based on the lease of the two-room Flexi flat. Average gross monthly household income between $7,001 and $14,000. Adjusted from $30,000, based on the lease of the two-room Flexi flat. Eligibility scheme. Private property owners or those who have disposed of a private property in the last 30 months prior to flat application. 99-year lease. Not eligible. Short lease. Adjusted from $30,000, based on the lease of the two-room Flexi flat. Second-timer applicant. Yours will be treated as a second-timer application if any of the following applies to you or any of the other listed owners and essential occupiers. Have owned or sold any of the following. HDB flat bought from HDB. Resale flat bought using a CPF housing grant. EC/DBSS flat bought from the developer. Once taken some form of housing subsidy, e.g. benefited under the Selective and Block Redevelopment Scheme, SERS, HUDC estate privatization. Payment of resale levy. Eligibility scheme. Public scheme/fiancé/fiancé scheme/orphan scheme. 99-year lease. Amount is dependent on the date of sale of first subsidized flat. Short lease. Adjusted from the lower of resale levy payable or $30,000, based on the lease of the two-room Flexi flat. Eligibility scheme. Single Singapore citizen/joint single/non-citizen spouse. Private property owners or those who have disposed of a private property in the last 30 months prior to flat application. 99-year lease. Not eligible. Short lease. Adjusted from $30,000, based on the lease of the two-room Flexi flat. Families or singles who have enjoyed two housing subsidies. You would be considered to have enjoyed two housing subsidies if you or the essential family members listed in your application have owned or sold two or more subsidized flats. You may apply for a short lease two-room flat if you have not bought a studio apartment or short lease two-room flat previously. You will have to pay a resale levy adjusted from $30,000, based on the lease of the two-room Flexi flat. Mortgage financing. 99-year lease. You can obtain an HDB loan or a bank loan to finance your flat purchase. Short lease. You will have to pay the flat purchase with cash or CPF savings, or both. Can I use my CPF savings? Yes. If you are 55 years old and above, and have set aside the basic retirement sum, you can use the CPF savings in your ordinary account, OA, to purchase the two-room Flexi flat. The two-room Flexi flat will then be pledged for the CPF OA amount used, up to the maximum amount allowed under the retirement sum scheme. For further inquiries on the use of your CPF money to buy a flat, please call the CPF Board Service line at 1-800-227-1188 during office hours. Can I apply for a two-room Flexi flat if I used to still own, or have full/partial interest in a local/overseas non-HDB property? 99-year lease. No, you may not. For a two-room Flexi flat application, all the listed owners and essential occupiers must not own, dispose, or have an estate or interest in any other local or overseas property. Within 30 months before the date of the new flat application, and up to the date of taking possession of the new flat. Exemptions may be possible for exceptional cases. To apply, please fill and submit this property questionnaire. Short lease. Yes, you can apply for a two-room Flexi flat or be listed in the application as an essential occupier. However, you must finalize the disposal of the property or your share in it within 6 months from the date you take possession of your flat. Properties this condition applies to: The properties considered in this instance include, but are not limited to: privatized HUDC flats, properties acquired by gift, properties inherited as beneficiaries under a will or as a result of the Intestate Succession Act, private property, properties owned, acquired, or disposed through nominees, regardless of property's location. Can I apply for a 2-room flexi flat if I used to still own an HDB flat, DBSS flat, or EC? 99-year lease. Yes, provided that you only owned one of the following units prior to your application. Flat bought from HDB. EC/DBSS flat bought from the developer. HDB resale flat bought using a CPF housing grant, only applies to first-timer applicants. An eligible Singapore citizen can purchase these properties twice in total, not twice per type of property. If you have already purchased 2 such properties, you will not be eligible to apply for a new flat or be listed as an essential occupier in an application. Short lease. If you own or have a share in an HDB flat, whether purchased directly from HDB or from the open market, you may still apply for a short lease 2-room flexi flat. Be listed as an occupier in a short lease 2-room flexi flat application. You must finalize the disposal of your private property or share in the private property within 6 months from the date of taking possession of the 2-room flexi flat. If you have previously sold 2 flats purchased with housing subsidies, you can still apply for a short lease 2-room flat provided you have not purchased a studio apartment or short lease 2-room flexi flat previously.